Okay, welcome back. We have a lot of very important information for you tonight to consider. A lot of you won't believe it. Well, not this audience, but the average American would just say, no chance. How many times have, in the last 25 years, I suggested that the technology being developed and deployed, past tense, against us is depending upon the discipline, 20, 30, 40 years ahead of what most people know? Well, in this first hour tonight, we're going to go back and then come forward. It's got to be close to 20 years ago, 16, 18 years ago, that I began covering Morgellons. Many of you longtime listeners remember these programs. It's at least 40 3-hour programs that were done to try to bring this developing story back then forward. The Morgellons fibers, how they clump together and grow. And then I met the incredible Jan Smith. Bless Jan Smith. And I don't know if she's still with us or not. I can only hope so. Her citizen science brought the truth forward that was so shocking that I think most people just dismissed it. Well, to fast forward, recently there have been a number of people doing YouTube videos on what they call nanodust or smart dust. But it's the same thing. It's the same thing we were doing here almost 20 years ago. It has certainly been improved. It has been deployed through the air. You've been inhaling it. You've been drinking it in the water. You've been eating it in the food. And you probably have been picking it up through just direct contact vectoring. And what I'm talking about are those fibers. Fibers, again. I'll never forget, last little bit of my preamble here. I knew somebody who had Morgellons. Long time ago. And this guy had lesions all over him. His body wasn't able to handle the invasion of fibers. And they were coming out of these lesions. He would pull them out with tweezers, post pictures on the internet. I didn't believe it at first. It was that unbelievable. But it didn't take long for the reality of it to set in. And working with me on many of those programs was Cliff Mickelson. Cliff is a Morgellons sufferer. And it does afflict people to varying degrees in terms of intensity, physical discomfort, mental, psychological devastation. Cliff somehow was able to deal with his, and he was a father with a family. And we do know some families where the whole family became infected with fibers. But somehow Cliff was able to work through this, and he's back with us tonight, and I'm forever grateful for the contributions he has made to the Morgellons community, which is really the community of mankind, because we're all, in all likelihood now, probably infested, not infected, if you want to say infested with these nano-based, self-replicating, intelligent, probably sending and receiving units, fibers, by the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, in your body right now. No joke. Cliff, welcome back, and thanks for all the years, and I don't know when it was we first started talking about this, but it's sure still here.
Yes, Jeff, it's great to hear your voice again. It's been a little while, but some things stay the same, and Morgellons are one of them. They don't change.
No.
But, it's just an ongoing struggle day by day for everyone who's infected with this, at least those who are overtly affected. But most people are infected with this, or I would say everyone. The world is blanketed with this stuff. So it's whether or not you show the symptoms.
Whether or not you show the symptoms, that's really kind of the pedestrian way to look at it, because I do think you're right. I think this has now spread, and we talked about this. how many years ago now, that it was going to spread. There was no stopping it. It was not only a physical vector, it was an STD, it was, all the above. This stuff is intelligent. It goes after human hosts.
Yes.
It loves people.
Yes, it loves people. It loves certain parts of people more than other parts. It's also rather fond of animals. It doesn't discriminate on that level. It's
right.
I've documented it in animals and also in insects.
Insects. What insects have you seen the fibers in?
Well, it's been a while, but back when you and I were doing and Jan were doing some of our shows, the early shows, I did some work on flies and mosquitoes, and I had a number of flies and mosquitoes that were infected with this malaise, as it were.
Oh, interesting. All right.
Yeah.
I'm sure that these don't discriminate in terms of where they go to host. And I mentioned Jan Smith. You and I and Jan did so many programs. Jan Smith's story, for those of you who don't know, and most of you don't, was that she had to go in to have a knee replaced. All right? She had already been finding fibers on her body from lesions, but she went in for this surgery. Tell them what happened.
Well, she actually ended up with 2 surgeries, but when she went in for the first one and they opened her up, they found a huge mass of what they didn't know what to call them, but she knew what they were. They found a huge mass of these fibers in under her kneecap and down into the bone that had just grown there and were in that particular area. They really didn't know what to do with her at that point in time, and she, of course, documented it. And then it turns out, it wasn't too much longer later that she had a second knee operation. And this time when she went in, they quarantined her. And I mean big time, even though they officially said that she was, that this was not Morgellons. They refused to accept that there was anything that, they refused to accept even the term. And they said that it was just some unknown dermopathy. But they quarantined her and locked her up like she was radioactive. And,
they had, in fact, the operating theater was BSL-4, I think. Everybody was in moon suits. Seriously, just for a knee replacement.
Yeah, but the shocker was the amount of Morgellons that were found underneath her kneecap in the first surgery. I'm not sure what they found in the second because I don't really remember.
They found the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal.
The fibers were everywhere, as you said, everywhere in that knee. Both knees.
In the muscle tissue, up behind the kneecap bone, all through that particular joint. It just infested everywhere.
I looked at a video last night, a very good video. Unfortunately, the guy put this stupid soundtrack on it, but he took some samples to apparently a microbiologist, somebody with a very foreign accent, but you could understand him. And he put them up. He had a big video screen, as microscopes do now. You don't look necessarily through the eyepieces all the time. You look at the video screen and see what you're looking at. All right. Well, the point was, this guy was absolutely shocked at what he saw that was coming off of his skin. He shaved his face and brought his razor in there, and the guy, the scientist, took a little scraping off the razor blades and put it on the slide and looked at it, and then there were the fibers, 450 magnification, 450x. That's when they become very clear. And the guy was watching, and these things began moving. Yes. As we know, they move. And then we consider the fact that there are different colors, there are different shapes, there are different sizes, and it gets to be real eerie, real fast. We didn't know what they were back then. Well, we knew they were nano. We called them nano. We couldn't prove it. But that's been nearly 20 years, and the development of this technology, which has to be, we'll speculate on the control here issue in a bit, but it has to be far down the road from what it was when we were first trying to figure out what we were looking at. Now, Jan, to her everlasting credit, turned herself basically into a human guinea pig in terms of pulling things out of her. She would pull things out of everywhere. Every lesion she had. A lesion is like an open sore. She'd pull out with tweezers this, that. She'd photograph it. She'd videotape them. She was the first to videotape these fibers moving. She was the first to pull things out of her body that looked like machines. Little strange things. Tell us about some of those.
She documented an amazing amount of stuff. It was phenomenal. It was just a treasure trove of information. And every type and form, because as those of us who have been involved with this for a long time know, this thing takes a lot of different forms. Even in its fiber form, it has different colors, different shapes. It masses or mats differently. But she had an incredible treasure trove of information on what Morgellons was and the things that she found. She found not only just the fibers, but other kinds of materials, reflective metals, microscopic pieces of metals, just on and on, actual designs being created by these machines. And believe it or not, actual designs being created by these machines. And intelligent response to stimulus, just on and on. Reaction to certain kinds of chemicals that you wouldn't expect, and of course an immunity to a staggering amount of chemicals and of course medicines that just don't seem to phase it. And the reason is because they're living, but in my opinion, is they're living, but they're not living. They're nano machines.
The one that was a complete mind-boggling to me, and we've tried to preserve all of Jan's pictures. We think somebody got to her site. She might not be with us anymore. I don't know. Her health was not good. You can't have an overwhelming infestation of this and be healthy. But there was one item. It was like kind of started out like a square, and it was folded, and it would open. Like imagine a metal square that had flanges on it that folded up over each other. This thing either unfolded on itself or she opened it up, and in the middle of it was this bright, kind of like yellow-white glowing thing in the middle of it. These are machines. These were machines that somehow found their way to her.
Yeah, absolutely. It was like the Matrix. It's like something out of the Matrix. The machines just creating themselves and in different forms and shapes. The things that Jan found and documented were truly phenomenal. And it's really a tragedy that we don't have a lot of that stuff with us now. What we saw on the video that you mentioned to the listeners just a little while ago really documents and validifies some of the things that we've already seen and already documented. But for the new listeners out there and the new people that see this stuff, it will be an eye-opener because more and more people are seeing this. And that's kind of one of the encouraging things that I'm seeing when I see videos such as the one that we're talking about now, that there is more of this stuff out there. I don't know how long it will be before we reach a tipping point with this, but it's always encouraging to see more people become aware.
The other aspect of it is, and this has always bothered me, people talk about skin. It's on the skin, it's in lesions, No, it's not on the skin. There is an initial point of invasion where these things get into the body. They then clearly spread and work their way all through the body. Remember, you have to magnify 450 times to see them. And then we're left with the issue. How deeply spread are they? We feel they're spread throughout the entire human body, from the heart to the lungs, the brain, and then, in my view, they eventually become so numerous that they end up at the skin and the body tries to expel them through the skin. But to think that this is simply a skin disease, which is what people used to try to say, is a terrible injustice. It's not. This is a systemic, entire physiology.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. It's not a skin disease, and a lot of people still claim that it is or think that it is, which is really just a kind of, I don't think it's a malicious claim. I think it's just ignorance. This thing is through the entire body. I've had them come out of my hands, out of my legs, and I mean from deep within. They leave huge holes where they come out. It's just, they're all through the body, and it's almost like you're just wired for sound. They're everywhere.
Well, we're wired for something. We don't know what. And we also suspect that they may be the cause of death. We don't know for sure. But if a heart, for example, becomes targeted by these fibers, and the fibers interrelate with the heart is an electrically stimulated, incredible, magnificent instrument, a pump, that these fibers could certainly interfere. Would they interfere on their own? Or, as we know, and we think without question, they are receiving units. They are also broadcasting units. We think there is a distinct potential of a two-way communication at some level between these Morgellons fibers and some kind of a central control, a matrix control arm, and we think that they may be wired through the cell phone system. We don't know for sure. Some are suggesting now that satellites can interrelate and interact with these Morgellons fibers. I can't prove it, but you know what we can prove, and we used to talk about this, of the people who died that we knew in the Morgellons community, and there were a number of them. Once they got very infected, they seemed to die. We could never get one of them autopsied.
Yes.
Remember?
Isn't that I do, and I remember just being constantly amazed and stunned at how these things would happen when we would have someone that would die that was a known victim of this situation, and lickety split off they went to the crematorium. I mean, just sometimes against family wishes.
Yes, against family wishes. Yeah, and we asked and appealed that just one person who dies leaves it in their will, perhaps, that they do not want to be cremated, whatever, to get the autopsy done. You know why they weren't autopsied? I'm sure you can all figure it out, because the results would have been shocking to the medical examiner, staggering. We have no doubt that the fibers would have been found in every major organ system in the body. And this would have been very difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, you open that person up, they're going to look. It's going to be everywhere, especially in the people that have actually died from it. Their whole system has been overwhelmed.
The other aspect of it is, why are they there? Who did it? And how are they primarily vectored? Well, the vectoring seems to be primarily from chemtrails. Now, chemtrails do a lot of things, and spreading Morgellons fibers, we think without question, is one of the primary tasks. When chemtrails first became apparent to me in the mid-90s, 94, 95, I had no idea what I was seeing. I knew I was seeing something that was wrong. And now at night, if you go out with an infrared camera or whatever, these machines, these fibers, are often absolutely everywhere in the sky and down at the ground level. They're swarming. They look like insects swarming. It doesn't stop. They just go on and on and on. We have been completely planted and contaminated with Morgellons fibers. Whatever these things are, they are everywhere. They're in the soil, they're in the air, they're in the water, they're in the food. There are several documentaries up there now, or YouTube videos, where it shows McDonald's chicken McNuggets, whatever, all kinds of fast food things. And when they're examined, there are Morgellons fibers embedded in them, not on them, in them, in the meat. Yes.
Yes, in the meat, everywhere. It's interesting that you say that. What you said about shining the light up at night, which would, and I would urge the readers to do that, or the listeners to do that as well, just for an eye opener, because you and I have both done that I remember doing it right after rainstorms. Sometimes when the air was perfectly clear and you could see for 50 miles in any direction. At nighttime, you would shine that light up, and all of a sudden, holy cow!
You do it with a flashlight. That's all it takes.
Just zipping through the beam, the light beam. I mean, millions of them, and they would. Some of them would go through there. I mean, 100 miles an hour, just zipping through.
Yeah.
And people would say, "Oh, that's just dust." Well,
no.
It's dust, all right. It's smart dust.
Yeah. Nano dust, smart dust. Yes, and there's no escaping it. You inhale it. That's the simple bottom line. You inhale it.
Yes.
And then you become
at this point.
You become infested.
Yeah.
I'll put these videos up a little bit later tonight. We're going to spend more time on this in hour number 3. Cliff Mickelson is with us right now. This is a big story. We'll speculate on maybe the why next. Joni Mitchell had to cut her career short pretty much. She is a Morgellons victim. She is a nanotechnology victim. She is a nanodust victim. She is a victim of the matrix of abject control of the human bioelectrical system. Back in a minute. Okay, back with Cliff Mickelson. There's a video, and I may not be able to get these posted tonight, but I'll put them up tomorrow. Here's a little section of it. This is a guy who took samples that he got off his skin. Remember, they're talking about skin here. They're not talking about deep penetration, which is really the critical issue that we used to talk about almost 20 years ago that people now still don't talk about. We think that these are in the lungs, in the heart. We think that they're everywhere. We think they are electro in nature. They're nano in size, but they're big enough to see because they keep building. They're self-replicating, self-repairing nano machines, and they get to be big. And they'll actually grow a number of fibers, different colors, red, green, black, and they'll grow together in kind of a web. They call it webbing. And they'll grow taller, and they'll actually stand off from the skin, reaching for things. You can see them moving. I know a lot of you don't believe this, but it's the truth. And we'll get to the point of speculating on what, where, and how is what's responsible for this in just a minute. I'm going to play a little of this clip. Now, the microbiologist here who's looking at these things is describing now, imagine a mass of colored threads all interwound together, little thin fibers, and they're on your skin, but they're reaching up off the skin, kind of building a tower, all right? They're reaching up off the skin. They're not crawling flat on the skin. They've woven themselves together. They've webbed together, and now they're reaching up off the skin. And this fellow, I think, is French, so he's got a bit of an accent, but I think you'll understand him. He talks about webbing, and he talks about them climbing, and the visuals, well, Cliff is, we're talking 20 years ago we were looking at this stuff. But here you go.
Yeah.
Okay, what's happening is the fiber, the webbing. So now I let them go to see what they want to do. So they walk together and they go as a spiral. Always as a spiral because it's stronger so that we can go higher.
Is that dumb music I was talking about?
Here, if you look at the head, the head is important because you have that one who come up, and after that one was up.
Okay, he's talking about the very head of this tower that they've built. One fiber comes up and it winds around one, and the other fiber comes up and it winds, and they're different colors.
Fall down and see the other turn around, that one go up. They always go like that, and they work together to make the tower like that. And inside of this you have other stuff which I will explain other time because I didn't discuss with my friend.
And now you see why I didn't post the videos. Dumb music. But you can still understand. You just have to focus a little bit. Let's play a little bit more.
Yeah. But and after this is one side, and now at the other side he start to do the same. So you see, he start to build round one, and that one go inside. And after you see here, he do the same, the round one, and he go inside, and he's going to make another tower.
I'm amazed that this is possible.
Right off the skin, growing up.
Level. But I mean, I know that. I mean, we're as a human being, we're made up of things that grow. But
that's not normal.
This isn't normal.
No, this is the smart dust. Okay. When they talk about the smart dust, what I learned from them on the 1990, they was explained that the smart dust will be everywhere in the nature, so they can check how the steel bridge with smart dust doing. So it's happening, all this happening. I can tell you why it's happening, because I already check. So I take a walk outside, I take up from the ground and rusty nail, and
rusty
the
nail
was out the callus, the stuff which emerged. You was seeing before, and it was out the fiber. And after on the ground, I pick up some foam. And the foam was do same thing as you see here. And after I did...
So a piece of foam, a rusty nail, same thing. Fibers enveloping, creating a platform, and then building a tower, so to speak, a spiral tower of threads, random threads. You look at it, it would look like a piece of fuzz. You would just knock it away. You wouldn't get it.
With plastic, and same thing with plastic.
Found it on plastic too.
You will see the top of my hands. This is the top of my...
He's showing the top of his hand now, and with infrared.
Hands with the black light.
Okay.
Black light.
So that's those fiber before they start to make the towers. So that's what it is.
Okay.
And it was a really nice camera, but more big you go, more easy, to move and this and that.
Right. I guess.
Yes.
You're less stationary. You're humans.
Yes. And I was doing that on my left hand, the one you see before.
Okay.
So what I was doing that to witness that, because I knew it was there, because I have those mini microscope.
Okay.
Okay. There's enough. I'll get this posted at some point here. Maybe I'll put it up now. But there are a couple of these videos that are extremely important. All right. In fact, let me take a peek. I think I've got them posted right now, and you can take a look at them after the program. Let's make sure we get this hour done with Cliff, and then we got 3 great hours tonight. Hold on. Let me see. Yes, I have the 2 videos now under Cliff Mickelson's name in guests, and I urge all of you to take a look at both of them. And then under the 3rd hour, we've got another one. We're going to do more on 5G tonight. We think that the 5G, chemtrails, these nano fibers, smart dust, nano dust, they're all related. We think it's part of the same matrix of control. Now, when I first saw chemtrails in 94, 95, I, of course, had no idea what I was looking at. Now I know. As Cliff mentioned, you take a flashlight and you go out after a spray day, shoot the flashlight up into the black night sky and see what you see. You may very well see just a mass of fibers. And these are all being released to make contact and infest you and I. All right, Cliff, so what the hell is going on here?
Well, just to reiterate quickly what you were saying, you'll see millions of those, and you'll see them without fail, I can guarantee you. Use a concentrated flashlight beam, go outside at night, and you are going to see something that you're just going to have a hard time believing. Of course, Jeff, you and I, and of course others that have been aware of this for a while, we've been doing these kinds of things for some time, and we've done things. I remember back in the late 90s and the early part of the turn of the century, collecting snow samples and examining that too. And there's another matrix where you'll find this stuff just everywhere. And it is everywhere. There's just, what's going on is that this has been happening for so long that we practically are these things. They are everywhere. I challenge anyone to go more than 20 feet and not be able to find some examples of it. I've traveled the world, as you know, and I've found them everywhere. We have cases we documented, of course, for a long time. We kept documentation on where these cases were popping up. It's everywhere around the world. And how does that happen? How can it be happening all over the world at the same time? Obviously, it's being spread by some common matrix, some common vector, And one of the primary sources of vectoring it is chemtrails. How else are you going to get it in Antarctica and everywhere else? It is everywhere. What is the end game? What's the agenda? We can only speculate, but all the speculation is not pleasant. None of it is a happy ending. You can find a lot of people with different ideas out there as to what this is all about. But I can say one thing with certainty: whatever it's about, it's not in our best interest.
We do think, without question, that these intelligent, self-replicating, in other words, they're growing, they're constantly making more of themselves, self-repairing, they're spreading. We think that once you're infested, it goes throughout your body, can cause any number of symptoms, and we do think that there is very strong evidence to sustain the idea that they are fatal over maybe a few year period, 10 years. It depends on you and how your system can adapt to this kind of an invasion. It's not helpful. Okay? This is not good ET coming to Earth to give us all something that's going to make us healthier.
No, it's not going to make us healthier. It's only can make us sicker. And some people, as we said before, don't show the symptoms. Some do. Some show the symptoms in severity. Some show the symptoms in severity and then go into some kind of remission. That was more or less my case. But either way, you're never 100%. You're never 100%. It's a general drag on your system, no matter how you react to it. Whether you show active symptoms or you don't, you're still affected by it.
Your immune system's going to attack it, but it won't win. There's no contest. You're not facing a biological entity. So
right.
It's a machine.
Yeah. It's a machine that can recreate itself. And once again, I have to use the movie The Matrix as kind of as a go-to here, because those machines, how they just reinvented themselves. This is what these things are doing on a microscopic.
They replicate constantly.
Level.
Constant replication.
Constant.
No stop.
Yes.
And
you cannot get rid of them.
There's no cure. Don't even use the word cure. Forget it.
No, not going to happen. I've been dealing with this for 20-something years. It comes and goes in severity, and much more severe when you first start showing symptoms. But you never get rid of it. I get emails all the time from people saying, "Hey, can you help me? What can I do?" I can say is just eat well, rest well, take care of yourself, and do the best you can.
Stop the lifestyle that drags your immune system down. Again, your immune system can't touch this stuff. It's not. It's like if you had a piece of metal got stuck under your skin. Your immune system can't do anything about it. It'll fester and get red, but you're not fighting a biological enemy. You're not fighting other cells. No. Your NK cells, your T cells, they don't do anything. These things are machines. No. And
they're machines.
I hate to say it, but I remember one of the guests, we had so many guests on back then. One guest was a woman from Australia, and she described how she was so sick and tired of these things, because what they'll do is they'll actually go into a hair follicle, kill off the hair, take the place of the hair, and begin growing like a hair. And she said all the hair, remember this woman? All the hair, she said all the hair around her forehead and so forth, she couldn't stand it because it was moving, and it drove her nuts.
Yes, and that's common. Actually, that's common with a lot of victims, the moving hair syndrome. It happens quite a bit, which is one of the things that this thing does when it reaches macro stage in a particular webbing. It looks like a hair and acts like a hair, except it's not a hair. So it does seem to have a very strange affinity for hair. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but you will find it often involved with hair and hair roots, working around wherever there's hair.
Now, if you have hair that's long enough, like 4 or 5 inches, comb it kind of forward on each side, kind of just rough it up a little bit so you got individual hairs that are not bunched together. Don't brush it, in other words. And then just sit in front of a light and watch the ends of your hair. And I've had so many people tell me this, that there'll be 2 or 3 on one side, or 4 or 5 or 10. They're moving. And you say, well, it's just the ambient air in the room. No, it's not the ambient air in the room. They're moving. And the videos I have up now, you will see video of these fibers moving. They move. They're reaching out. They're looking for something to grab onto. And all you have to do is just let your hair down, no pun intended, pull it out so there are a lot of single strands, and just watch them. If you don't see anything move, terrific. But don't be surprised if you do. Don't freak out.
Oh, they will.
Nothing you can do.
They will definitely move. One of my symptoms was that I had it really bad I have it really bad in my nasal cavities and in my lungs. So I would a lot of times remove them with using tweezers or whatever. So there wasn't even just hair that was growing on the outside of my head. But I would get them out of the nasal cavities or out of the ear cavities.
Wow.
Just when you cough them up because they're down in your lungs.
You've coughed them up? You've coughed them up?
Oh,
okay.
You bet I have.
Yeah.
And when I was first afflicted, they were really heavy in my lungs. I couldn't hardly get a full breath. And then they really loved the nasal cavities and those kinds of areas. And so I would get them and I would examine them, and you could actually watch them move. And, you could put them in a glass where there was absolutely no air moving, so that there was no ambient air in the room moving things around. And they would move, and they would move exactly as this, for instance, this video that you're going to post will show. They also react to things. I'm not sure if you remember, Jeff, but one time Jan and I did a little experiment with matches, and we would light a match and bring it close to the Morgellons creature, if you will, and the thing would move away from, just boom, jump away from it. So
I remember.
Get close.
Oh yeah,
and then
heat.
we would light and then we would light the thing on fire, and it wouldn't burn. We would actually get it wouldn't light it on fire because it wouldn't burn, but we'd put it under a flame.
She used a little tiny butane torch.
Yes, and that's when we first started thinking, because we were doing a lot of work together in those days, and that's when we first started thinking, hey, now this isn't flesh. Whatever this is, it's not reacting like flesh would to a flame. It's something
Nothing
else
organic, no.
Yeah.
No, but bless that lady. What, she was so heroic. I don't know what happened to her, but I know her health was not good. And then she wouldn't answer my emails, and I just think she got sicker and sicker. But remember, I repeat, not one single Morgellons or Morgellons-related death have we ever been able to have an autopsy done. I'm sure that medical examiners are seeing people who have died, and they're doing autopsies, and they're seeing these fibers infesting major organ systems. And I'm sure that there have been directives passed out by state and federal agencies that they are not to talk about it. I have no doubt in my mind about it.
Yes, I agree, absolutely. Whatever and whoever has a vested interest in this particular creation has a lot of power and a lot of ability, a lot of money to use that power, because every time that something looks positive for us, that there's going to be some kind of break in the dam that's holding all this information back, it gets plugged. We're fighting something that is bigger than
it's the biggest force on the planet, perhaps. I'm sure. People say you can take a baking soda bath and they'll all leave your body. Not true. You'll get some relief. especially if you have lesions. That'll help. But you got to remember, these things are in your liver, your kidneys, in your pancreas. They're everywhere. Once you get them, they go. That's what they're designed to do.
Yeah, you're not going to get rid of them. It's not going to. There's nothing, and there's no. Don't waste your time taking anti-worm medicine or antibiotics or
antiparasitics. No, right. Magnetic pulses aren't going to kill them. Nothing kills these things. They're indestructible, essentially. Jan used to remember the one she burned. Doggone it! She burned one of them, and it had a golden head on the end of the fiber, and it
That's
just
right.
Yeah, wild.
We had photos of that. Yeah, we had photos of that up on the site, and that was one of the experiments that we did. And she carried that one out, and when she called me on the phone and said, I just posted this, you need to take a look at that. I said, holy cow, I was like, it's incredible. You're not going to get rid of this through any kind of medicinal means. Don't fall for all the hucksters out there that are trying to sell you the cures. It's not going to work. Just get as much rest and take as good a care of yourself as you can, because that at least gives your body the rest it needs to be able to function on a daily basis.
I think it's also behind a lot of autoimmune, what they call autoimmune issues. Chronic fatigue syndrome could easily be involving Morgellons. We didn't have chronic fatigue 35, 40 years ago. It wasn't around, and it became big. So there's something causing that, and those people should all be examined for fibers. Although it really doesn't matter. I mean, you can put a piece of tape on your bare forearm and then peel it off and examine it, and you'll find fibers. Everybody has them now. It's a big secret.
Right. They're everywhere. If you're a listener right now, and like Jeff is saying, go take some tape and go around your house. Go to the light switches on the top where the dust collects, and
any horizontal surface, any
horizontal surface, windowsills, in the corners, and you're going to see. At first, you'll see some regular house dust, but you're going to see some other things. I can guarantee you that is not house dust, and you'll recognize it. It's pretty hard not to recognize it once you take a good look.
There was an effort to try to write it off to, they're just polyester fibers or cotton fibers. Sorry. No way.
No,
you look at the videos under Cliff Mickelson's name tonight or tomorrow, and you'll see. It's there. The second video is done by a brilliant scientist, European, maybe Swedish, Dutch, I don't know. He's got a German accent. Boy, is that guy smart. Wow. That, I don't know if I sent you that one or not. I think I did, but I'll send it to you just to be sure. There are, again, a lot of videos out there with disinformation, misinformation, and I only say that with humility, because Cliff and I have been doing this for, let's just call it 20 years. It's damn close. And this has only gotten worse and worse and worse.
And it's only going to get worse.
Yeah. They're transmitters, they're receivers, they're self-replicating, they're intelligent, and they're in your body.
And they're close to indestructible.
They are damn close to indestructible. Did I scare you? I apologize if I did, but it's the truth. I'm not going to hide that from anybody. So do what Cliff said. Get a piece of Scotch tape, go around any horizontal surface, get a microscope that can magnify, maybe 50 times. You might be able to see them without any trouble. This one guy was using 450, but you don't need that much. You can see them.
Yeah, you can actually see it, Jeff, with 10. If you get a good jeweler's loupe, you can see some of them, the more macro examples you can see with a 10 power.
I can see them with the naked eye in some cases in a lesion. Yeah. They're colors. Yeah. Red, black, green.
They're partying hardy in a lesion. Once you're in a lesion, you're going to see them with the naked eye.
Yeah. All right, Cliff, thank you for the time and the visit and for the friendship for all this time. And we're going to keep after this. It's moving forward, very much so, and it should be of great concern. you won't hear the government say anything about it. Same old story.
That's for sure. And really appreciate the time that you give to this, Jeff. And as always, it's good talking with an old friend. And
thank you.
We'll keep in touch.
Okay. Thanks, Cliff.
Bye-bye.
All right. Very courageous man, wonderful man, as are many in the Morgellons community. Morgellons nanofibers. Nanodust, smart dust. It's in the air, it's in the water, it's in your food,